Next up would be Veteran Services, Mr. Pizzera. Page 40, Department 543.
Sorry, Mike, you want to go? Bill's abandoning me. Good evening, Mike Pizzara, Veterans Officer for the town. Well, as you can see, I'll be glad to take any questions. You know, basically, as you can see, the budget has actually gone down this year. That's the first time in all the years I've been here that that's happened. Our caseload, while the numbers are pretty much the same, what's happened is it's a means-tested program, so our older clients are tending to drop off the rolls. They have had less income. Newer clients coming on have a greater income based on the fact that it's a means-tested program. The greater the income, the lower the benefit, you know, hence the lower the need for the budget. Although we do have about the same amount of clients, just a few less, although this month it picked up again for the month of December. So I'd be glad to take any questions. I could go into a general discussion of what the Veterans Office does if you're not familiar.
Dr. Camacho, please.
I wanted to ask about the principal clerk, the part-time. It's at, was part-time wages and number of employees. How many hours does this person work?
She's still part-time wages. She works up to 19 and a half hours a week she's allowed.
So it's 19.5?
Yeah, generally she works less than that. She might work about, I think her standard hours were around 18 hours a week.
And the, now how has the salary increased?
You know, last year I tried to get her an increase, and so, you know, what I did, I looked at comparable pay rates for communities in the area for what she was doing. Let me give you an example. At the time, her pay rate was $16.07 an hour. Population of Stoughton was about 27,000, 26,000. A comparable community, Marshfield, population 25,000. Per capita income in Stoughton, 25,000. In Marshfield, about 29,000. We had about 100 cases. Marshfield had 69 cases. These are the cases that generate the veterans benefits that you see on the budget. The pay rate for our person, like I said, was $16.07. The Marshfield person was getting $24.62 an hour, working 27 hours a week in a benefited position, and this position was part-time. She was through an analysis, you know, based on information that I gave to Mr. Kelly, a human resource manager, she was bumped up, you know, grade and stepwise.
So she received an increase of $3,944.
The increase was about $3 an hour, is what it came to.
So she earns now 20-some odd dollars.
If she were, that budget, the $20,453, what I budgeted there was 19 and a half hours a week times her hourly rate times 52 weeks. She she probably won't reach that because she'll be taking off, you know, maybe vacation time if she's out sick, and it's a non-benefited position.
I see. Now, the increase is $3,944. Now, does 2.5% get put on top of that?
The budget she has here, this classification, this reclassification for her, this was done earlier in this fiscal year. So yes, this new budget, the fiscal year 2008 budget, that reflects a 2.5% increase, you know, at the start of the new fiscal year,
So
yes.
the new fiscal year, fiscal 18 year, represents the additional 2.5% is already included in
It's included in that,
that
yes.
$3,944
Yes.
increase.
Yes,
It's not
that's
going to be anything put on top of that.
correct. That's the budget for fiscal year 18. That's correct.
And how do you determine, other than looking at one town like Marshfield?
We had several towns. We had Stoughton, Plymouth, Attleboro, Marion, Rochester, Mattapoisett, Brockton. You know,
So what's your determining factor? I guess I'm going to ask this of most of the people that come here for this. What's the determining factor? How do you determine that a person's grade is supposed to be changed?
Well, that's a human resource question for Jamie Kelly. It's an extensive analysis, but I can answer it based on my experience in management. You look at what the job entails, the degree of skill involved, you know, computer acumen, you know, in this type of job, your compassion, your caring about people, your ability to discuss information with people. It's almost like being a psychologist, being able to pull information, extract information from people. We deal with a lot of older clients, and they come in and they may think they qualify for something, and they're so sure of it, but then when they go to get the information, you know, it's an interesting thing. They don't know how much money they made. They don't know what their assets are. And to try to help them and get that information, having the ability and the willingness to go beyond what your job really entails, get on the phone and call Social Security to help them out to get this information, go online, set them up with that, call their banks, you know, doing things like that with them in the office. Those are the things that determine, you know, in my view, you know, what somebody should get paid, that degree of competence and professionalism and caring about what you do, and that's what she does. So that's part of it, but as far as the technical aspect, how it's done with the, you know, Jamie Kelly has all this human resource stuff. I'm okay.
Yeah, it's probably a more appropriate question for Mr. Kelly, but we use a system called the Bennett system, and there are several areas where, and some of the areas Mike identified on education required, the difficulty of the work, et cetera, and it's a point system, and it's based on the job description and interviews with the employee and the employee supervisor to make sure they're on the same page. And then you simply, you add up the point total, and the point totals translate to different grades. And if the point total exceeds the grade the person's in, then a reclassification is due, but we actually have a system that is used to do that.
So, excuse me, just to ask you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Hartman, I had asked for my subcommittee for all the job descriptions for the general government for this subcommittee. Will we see, so the principal clerk too, there'll be a separate job description for that that's available to us?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll discuss more about that later. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
John.
Just to try and clarify something, I mean, the sound in here is lousy anyway, but you mentioned, another question was, is the 2.5% built in here? This is a 24% increase from FY17. That's strictly from the reclassification?
Well, most of it, except for the 2.5% increase going from fiscal year 17 to 18. That's where the 2.5 came in on the grid. But you're right. That was it was a, you know, in my opinion and the opinion of the analysis that Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hartman agreed to, it was a worthwhile
Right,
increase. Yeah.
Just to understand, it is a 24% increase from last year, or just shy of it, but.
Well, counting what's in fiscal year.
I'm going from the approved budget last year to the requested budget this year. It's 23.88% increase.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and this was based on what Mr. Hartman was just talking about with the reviews, the interviews, and going through the, what you say it was the Bendix that you.
And you can only go so far. And for the record, she's still paid substantially less than comparable work in other communities who do substantially less work than her. Let me point out one thing, too, and this is, you know, relatively related. In fiscal year 2004, okay, so we're looking at 14 years ago, our total budget, that total salary line item budget of $94,907, that is less than what the budget for this office was in fiscal year 2004. And I'll point out, in fiscal year 2004, the veterans' benefits being paid out were $22,000, as opposed to where we are now of $590,000 budgeted. I'll also point out that about 60% of the work we do in our office is federal work, VA claims, service-connected disabilities, aid and attendance, pensions, working with VA healthcare. None of that was being done in fiscal year 2004 when I came here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, when I heard this included a 2.5% and so forth, I just wanted to make sure I understood this right, because the hours aren't increased or anything. So the increase that you're asking for here is close to 24%.
Well,
Based on what you have just gone through, and Mr. Hartman is...
It's a well-deserved increase, you know, relative, and again...
I'm not questioning...
I don't want to get into any personalities.
I'm not
Just-
questioning
No, I'm not-
that.
Just stay on what the job is and what its benefits
I'm
are
just saying
to the
that-
town.
I
don't want
think
to
Mike
find
said
out
that,
who's...
the differential here was almost $3 an hour when the position was reclassified.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the lower,
And
you know,
based
the lower
upon
the
the-
base and with a decent raise, it's a very
Correct.
large
correct.
percentage.
And other than our
More
seasonal,
money, I just,
right, other than
You
our
have 2.5%,
seasonal
I
employees,
just
this was
wanna make
probably the
sure-
lowest paid employee we had.
I just wanted to make sure I understood when they
Right,
said, well, the
the-
2.5 was in there. Well, there really isn't a 2.5, it's a 24% raise. I mean...
Correct, but the bulk
But-
of it has already been given this fiscal year.
All right, well, that's
This
right.
employee has already been reclassified and is receiving that pay
All right,
now.
And see, I haven't heard that until this moment, that...
I
that
think
it-
Mike said it, but maybe you missed it.
Well, that's why I say the sound in here isn't that great. And I didn't hear that part that she was already increased, so it's
Yeah.
only a 2.5%. Okay, thank you.
I just got one thing to say. Is this a union position?
No,
No.
No, she's
Because
not.
part-time's not union.
correct.
If there was a statement made at a selectmen's meeting that non-union people weren't going to get any raise this year, nothing. Some selectmen made that, basically, that that group of people didn't work as hard as union people. Why are we given the step that
answer that, Mike.
that position qualified into, and now we're handing out
Well, the answer to
2.5s
that is
that
that-
are unfair?
The budget ultimately approved by the selectmen included step increases for the 17 non-union employees.
Well, some of them in here aren't reflecting it. And we'll point them out later. Mr. Laurie.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Pizarro, for presenting. I just wanted to know, everybody that's been coming in front of us has had budget increases year over year, and I know that there are reasons why you're coming in at 4% less than you've asked in the past. I just wanted to know if that's some kind of a virus of having budgets lowered. I wanted to know if you can pass that virus along to your brethren in other departments, so we can see 4% decreases across all of our departments.
Well, let's see if it stays this way. We'll see what happens.
John, did you have anything? No? Ben?
I just wanted to say thank you for working to try to retain a high-quality employee who's serving our veterans, and also for doing such a great job to expand veteran services in the community over the last decade or more, so appreciate that.
Oh, appreciate that, thank you.
1 minute, Cynthia. Roberta. Dr. Camacho, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'd like to know then, and I also thank you for the services that you provide and your assistant provides, but where did you get the money? If Mr. Hartman said that the monies were already, it's already been implemented, so where did those monies come from if the person is already being paid the increase?
We were fortunate this year. Last year, our budget last year was, for fiscal year 17, $625,000. We're going to come in substantially less than that, so I believe there was a transfer from the expense account into the salary account in order to do this. Now, just so everyone knows, this isn't some planned thing that we were going to do. I would have gone to FinCom if we didn't have the money in the budget, but it made it easier based on, again, as I explained earlier, our older clients leaving, falling off the rolls for whatever reason, and our newer clients on with slightly more income, so our benefit level actually went down, even though we had the same amount of clients. So we had that extra money in that. In fact, this year we'll be turning back probably around, I don't know, $70,000, somewhere in that range. But that's where it came from.
I see. All right, thank you.
Ms. Walsh?
He always sets us at Howie height. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I think that we should be very proud that in Massachusetts is the only state that requires every community to have a veterans agent. I don't know if you've gone through this, but I did with my dad. And annually, I had to fill out an 8-page report to justify him receiving what he was receiving. And it said at the top that the government had figured out that it would take 45 minutes to fill out the form. Now, I have a college degree. It took me 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours a year. I never got good at it, and I did it for 9 years. The work that is done by the clerical staff is simply so involved. I mean, they want to know monthly what you pay for electricity and things like that. It's not just you come in with your tax return and there's a number at the bottom and okay, all set. And we all know from the national news that dealing with the VA is difficult. I would get on the phone when I came home from work, and I would be put on hold. And after being on hold for 20, 30, 40 minutes, a recording would come on. The VA is now closed. Please try again tomorrow during our normal working hours. I mean, this is government, but that's a whole other kind of government. This is government with a little g. The kind of work that the kind of clerical work that's done isn't just fill in the blank. And as the previous speakers mentioned, you're dealing with folks who have physical, mental, emotional difficulties, who really aren't even aware sometimes of what's going in and what's going out. And sometimes they have to deal with family members who are trying to help the person that needs the help the most. So it's a job other than what we think of as fill in the blank, file it, and the money just comes rolling in. So this staff member, whose name I don't even know, I come up here some days, and there's several people sitting here with their folders. It takes a lot of effort. I'm sure that when she goes home each day, she may not be physically tired, but she must be emotionally drained from dealing with this population.
Thank you, Cynthia. Is there any other board members have anything to say? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you all.